At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more, or visit tremfyaradio.com.
It's really cool. Bonjour, hello, welcome to the Rosbif Rugby Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, the top 14, Pro D2, National, the brilliant towns, cities, bars, restaurants, food, and of course the people and fans that make French rugby so splendid. I'm with Rob, as always. Busy evening for you, Rob. You've been playing a bit of cricket?
Yeah. Played a bit of cricket. Might not be able to move for about 4 weeks now. I'm in quite a lot of pain, but we'll see. Just want to pick you up on big win, yeah. T20 Cup, which was quite good fun for a second 11. First time we've ever been in that. I just want to pick you up on your intro. No National this week. It's all done, mate. Don't know if you saw, but National was done a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Well, I'm aware of that, aren't I? But you know, you've got to shout them out. I feel like National Pro D2 has become the sort of in vogue league, right? We're going to need to move.
Oh, it's very hipster, else. Isn't it? So yeah.
We need to keep flying the flag. It's like, you know, when your favourite band becomes really popular.
It's like Shoreditch 15 years ago, yeah.
Or like a restaurant opens and everyone starts piling in. Yeah, you got to diversify. Having said that, though, we're probably going to launch straight into Pro D2 at the top of the show, because arguably the most important and biggest news from the weekend just gone. And I know that you've been spending your last day before you dive back into the world of work and stop sponging. Brittany has its first ever top 14 side. Van beat Grenoble 16-9 in Toulouse to spark reasonably wild scenes, I would suggest, from various parts, which maybe we'll touch on in a moment. Let's go into the game first. Yeah, amazing. I've seen bits of it. I believe you treated yourself to a full rundown. What are your thoughts?
Well, I didn't quite manage the full rundown, partly because I was trying to sort out private health cover for my breaking body this afternoon, which took a bit of time. But I've watched.
Is this because? Sorry, just to interject. Is this because you used to get that through your work, and now you're having to slum it with the rest of us?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fair. Okay.
The perils of leaving a big corporate. But so I've seen like the first 45 minutes, which was, I mean, the first 20 of this was hectic. It's like, I don't know if you feel this, but like it sometimes feels like when you watch Pro D2, either at the ground or certainly on TV, it feels like someone's like turned it up to like 1.25. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, there might be people listening to this podcast at 1.25 speed, but it feels like when you watch it sometimes that it's just rapid. Everyone's just so frenzied. The first 10, 15, 20 minutes was just, they're both just flying around and everyone was just doing everything at 100 miles an hour. But Van were the better team, I think. Grenoble, sorry, I've been working on my pronunciation. It's a really hard word to say in English, I think, showing our real Ros beefness here. Grenoble. They spurned a couple of chances about 5 meters out with a couple of tackles.
Yeah.
Barnabé Massa, under 20s hooker, who's been really good off the back of those mauls all season, actually. He spilled one kind of just on the line, tackled. It was weird because there was, first 20 was hectic, and then the second 20 was just box kicking. It was a lot of box kicking, but then whenever Grenoble won a penalty, they went tap and go, whether it was Davies or fullback, and just flew through and just actually got some really good ground and created some good chances. They had a really big sustained spell kind of towards the end of the first half that, again, it was just knocked out kind of about a few meters from the line. I think they're kind of perhaps unfairly categorized as kind of the more physical team because they've got some big blokes and they've got a good set piece and they've got a good maul, but they have played it, and they've got a 10 that kicks very long and very well. But they do play some great rugby as well, Grenoble. But Van plays some fun. They're just fantastic to watch. I think Michael Ruru at 9 is a really, really classy player.
And they move the ball around at such speed, and it's clearly, it's I think it goes back to, I don't know, it was probably a couple of months now, isn't it? We interviewed Zach Farrett to Barrage, and he was talking about them, and it kind of came through like just how well coached they are, and that being a product of the kind of consistency in coaching staff, and really kind of having almost load the set a bit, but like a real kind of DNA in how they play. And I think as well, I mean, say the bits I saw were the first 20 were incredibly frenetic, which sort of goes against everything you expect in the first 20 minutes of a sort of, the stakes are enormous. It's hard to kind of, financially, reputationally, just kind of pure pride. Like the stakes are enormous in this, and that invariably tends to result in kind of cagey starts and feeling each other out rather than absolute hell for leather. And that's Grenoble as well. But they back their plan, don't they? And more often than not, it comes off.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because it's the kind of like you see it in the Premier League, don't you? Like with teams coming up from the Championship, like can they, still play the same attacking style, against better opposition? And I think for me, I was kind of because we only really see highlights generally, you think, okay, well, they play some great running rugby, but actually these teams that have great running rugby, if you're doing that consistently over a season, you've got to have a good pack. And I think I was actually sitting down and watching a large chunk of their game, the physicality in their front row carriers and the tackling of their back row, but physically matching a team that we know is physical in Grenoble, I think is interesting because it'll be, if they can match them, and it'll be interesting to see how Grenoble go against Montpellier next week in terms of physicality and where that matches up this season. But I think Van are physical. Could they need to make a step up because their star player or a guy who looked great, and I couldn't believe it, is Sione Kalamafoni.
He looked unreal.
Who must be like 35, 36 now. Yeah. He was so average at Leicester. Like, He was the highest carrier for Leicester every week, and it would be like 20 carries, 18 yards made. Like, it was just so undynamic, and he looked really dynamic. And that would be, I don't know whether that's the French diet or the French way of life, and it's rejuvenated. But he wasn't exactly tearing up trees at Scarlets or wherever he was between Leicester and Van. So I wonder if it'll be interesting to see whether they can match the top 14 teams physically next year, and then be able to kind of get the ball that they need to go forward to be able to continue with those amazing running lines and amazing pace. They could. I mean, no one's going to kind of come back and review us on this, but they could become like a La Rochelle. Like, they've got that feel about them, kind of just representing their part of the country, which is generally underrepresented. Sellout crowds by the coast, a team that's been building slowly in Pro D2 now has hit the jackpot. Could they, in 5, 6, 7 years' time, do what La Rochelle did? Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen teams, like you don't always have to have quite perhaps the obvious star names to at least settle in the top 14. I think I've seen apparently they're going straight in, looking at a few sites, lining up potentially, what's his name, Bordeaux, Kane Douglas in the second row. Kamita plays for Racing.
Sorry.
So bit of heft. I think they're
big lack of Fijian outside centre or winger. That's the one thing they seem to be lacking. All these teams that are kind of better than the sum of their parts, like Cast and Perpignan.
I'm sure
they've all got a flair Fijian winger. So
I'm sure they'll be able to find someone from Dijon or Chambéry or somewhere like that. They'll be the next big thing lurking around. But it's the La Rochelle point set is a really interesting one, kind of geographically, I suppose, similar. You've probably read it, because I know you're quite a big fan of his writing, but the Times journalist Elgin Alderman.
I haven't read it yet. I was going to read it on the train, and then I actually decided to try and watch the game instead.
Fair, yeah. Great article, just talking basically like a bit of a kind of potted history of Van. Some of the stuff that maybe people are a little bit more familiar with in terms of being in Pro D2 since 2016, the link with the town. I think the two really interesting points that were made in it. Well, one, I hadn't quite realised how long Spitzer, the coach, he's been there since 2005. So best part of 20 years, which is, quite something. It talks to that kind of longevity and consistency. But also him, I think there was a quote from him, and I don't know if he was directly interviewed or if it was from elsewhere, but talking about how, his kind of mentality and his motto has been to sort of embrace that, them being an outpost, them being kind of a lone wolf in that part of the country, and as you say, very similar to the likes of La Rochelle in terms of that link between the town, it being the kind of centre point. It's a great article.
It's interesting because because Zach Farrant said that Oyonnax were the same. So Oyonnax would kind of, although Oyonnax have been up and down a little bit more, and obviously they've first probably top 14 kind of 2016, I want to say, I think under Christopher Urios. But again, a bit of an outpost. Coaching staff's been there a long time, built together. So there's a chance Van do an Oyonnax and just come straight back down. But either way, pretty cool. Certainly a place I'd love to go. I really, this is really random, but I really love the blue of their blue.
Yeah, I know
it's a real nice blue.
It's a good blue, isn't it? It's like a little bit of, I don't know why, but it feels like a little bit of an upgrade on the Cast blue.
It's like it's like the Cast blue is like an 8 out of 10, and then Van blue is the saturation turned up to 100% or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good one. We've got to touch on some of the celebrations. Not known for, French rugby teams, not known for their kind of modesty and not modesty, that's not the right word. They're sort of shyness in celebrating a big win. Some of the both in the town on the ramparts that look class, but I think probably the ones from the changing room are actually the most notable. I know you're a big fan of you win the shield, you do what you want with the shield. I saw sort of
I don't.
What do you? I don't know. I
I
saw
don't think
people
I've
like
seen
surfing it over, like crowd surfing the shield.
like genuinely standing up
Yeah.
surrounded by. That was on the day after. That's in the at the Stade de la Rabine, and like supporters or players are holding the shield, and some bloke is surfing it. I also don't think I've seen the slip and slide to headbutt the shield before. I think that's a new one.
Yeah. And that was like it was a full team effort as well. Everyone had to have a go at sliding head first, including one clip of I don't know who it was, but his mate was holding him back by the budgie smugglers. So it was just like I think the replacement prop sliding arse full view through a stream of champagne and lager, maybe a bit of Breton cider, head first into the shield. It looked pretty leery.
It's good to see that in the age of lawsuits on concussion, the French kind of think, wow, yeah, let's go headfirst into a wooden and metal shield just after 80 minutes of rugby. That slightly different culture in France. What would you? I think
school meathead behavior.
Maybe this is one for the off season, Rich. And I'm going to put you on the spot now. But what would you do? I've actually thought of something on the spot. But what would you do to damage your shield if and when you win a French domestic shield?
Oh wow!
And actually, the one that I'm thinking of is something I know you have done with various implements.
Oh Jesus, that sounds slightly menacing. I don't know. I like the Entomac, like bodyboarding it. That was quite good. You might need to come back to me.
I think so. Obviously, a shield is a little bit like a tray, and you could play a bit of tray ball, or even, as I know you did in your time in Australia, have a full net in a corridor with a hard cricket ball using the shield as a bat. I think that would suitably damage and destroy your shield in a real celebratory mood, hitting bombs in a changing room. Bit of one hand, one bounce, maybe with the
nice
shield in the changing room.
Might hit one as well with a 3 foot wide shield. So perhaps one to think about. But yeah, look, Van, it's a wicked story. It looks like an amazing place. Going to be tricky to get a ticket, I think, particularly at the start of the season. Dare I say it, they might need to suffer a few drubbings, and then maybe like a bleak midwinter fixture might open up. Although I did see earlier, apparently they are in talks. I can't remember who it is. One of the French rugby journalists. I've forgotten who it was. So shout out to whoever it was from the local or one of the local Breton papers, saying that there are talks to possibly host a match at the Stade Breton, which is the home of Rennes in Ligue 1. So
nice.
Obviously a lot of top 14 sides now are kind of having these out games, get a few more bodies through. I mean, that you would, if you're going to do it there, you've got to go Van La Rochelle, haven't you? Like that would be unbelievable. Class.
Or one of the Paris teams, maybe. Nantes is quite nearby as well, isn't it? That's a big stadium.
Yeah, Nantes isn't too. Nantes kind of between, give or take, between Van and La Rochelle. But amazing story. Grenoble, we might as well touch on it because we're kind of there, and Montpellier may as well have not turned up at the weekend. Massive. There's one. Finally, it is the last game. It counts as a Pro Day game in my eyes. This, the access match will be at Grenoble this weekend against Montpellier. Kind of said all along. It was only until relatively recently, I think, we both kind of realised that, well, no, Montpellier are going to be in the access match. Ridiculous. But they've been dire for big sways of the season. But I think we both felt that their kind of star quality at some point has to make a difference in a game like this, right? You'd think, or do you think Grenoble have a sniff?
I genuinely don't know. I find it so hard. So Montpellier are now in the green on the GIF stats. There were 3 non-GIFs in the match day 23 on Saturday. So congrats to Harry Williams, Masavesi Dakawanga, and George Bridge for being the least desirable non-GIFs.
How has George Bridge ended up in that category?
I wonder if they just got a few injuries, or I don't know. But yeah, do you know what? Okay, so I mean, it's just mad that they've been comfortably 13th, like that they've been in the access match. I actually looked up today. There were 9 starters and 4 replacements, so 13 at the match day 23 that won the final 2 seasons ago are still in the Montpellier squad.
It's an astonishing drop-off, isn't it?
I mean, the big thing, though, is... and Reinach didn't play in that game. Reinach must have been injured. He didn't play in the top 14 final that year, but he was obviously there. But the big thing is number 10 and number 21 now do not play for Montpellier. Yeah. So Paolo Garbisi started. Andre Pollard was on the bench. And they are... I think Carbonell is fit. I don't actually know. Forsan's played 10, who that year was kind of a promising 10 and is about to be jettisoned, about to be chucked out. And the big thing at Grenoble is Sam Davis is just playing some brilliant rugby. He's got such a big boot.
They'd have him in a heartbeat, Montpellier, wouldn't they?
Oh God, yeah. Well, I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking about, is Sam Davies in the reckoning for a Wales shirt again? Because they've got issues at 10, and it's hard to disagree. Like, he's just been in such good form.
Yeah.
He's quite Dan Bigger-ish in that kind of big boot, kicks his goals, in charge of the game, but when he sees an opportunity, will tap and go for it. Yeah, I do wonder. I know I've said all along that I can't see Reinach on the losing team of an access match because he's so good. But actually, is the fact they've got Eric Escond, who I think won a Heineken Cup with Toulon back in the day. Him at 9, and if not, it's Barnaby Kuyu and Sam Davis. Like, those halfbacks do they have a little bit more than the Montpellier halfbacks, which seems mad given that, 2 years ago they had a World Cup winning fly half on the bench.
Yeah. And I think from the thing that it's a big thing to pick yourself up from, to lose that final for Grenoble, albeit you're doing it at home. It's probably going to be pretty close to a sellout, which is, that's going to help. But you compare that to Montpellier, who essentially have known their fate of this match for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So everything's kind of building to this. It's a big swing, I think psychologically. But I mean, there's a lot to lose for either team, but like the stakes at play for Montpellier are so vast here.
Yeah.
And that's a massive thing to be taking in. You look at, I assume they've essentially got kind of unlimited cash with the signings they've made and making and what have you, but it's a huge hit. It's going to be like, if they go down by something, we've already seen, like, they appear to be going off the rails in the last few months. What is going to happen if they go down? It's going to be exodus across the board. It's going to be cancelled contracts. It's going to, loads of those guys are going to have release clauses, aren't they? And maybe, I don't know, maybe that's the sort of shock treatment that they need.
Their academy's all right. Like,
yeah, always has.
And there are loads of players dotted around top 14 and Pro D2 that are ex Montpellier Academy. Like,
but yeah, they're getting something wildly wrong. I still think you just. I think they find a way. You would assume, but yeah, it's tasty.
Well, I think
Very
do
tasty.
think that you're right about the week off and knowing their fate. Like, if you look at some of the players that didn't play this weekend, and then I've got a few big names not fit, like Paul Valenza and stuff like that. But you look at kind of like Lamasatelli, Payenga Ramosa, Janty van Rensburg, Sam Simmons, Reinach, Serfontaine, Ben Lam. None of these guys played at the weekend. Like, those are big. Serfontaine's been, despite in a rubbish team, Serfontaine has been one of the best players in the top 14 this year. As has Reinach won a World Cup in November, like, and we're starting 9 for quite a decent chunk of that tournament. I just think that the non-GIFs, when they come back, are of such star quality. Like, Sam Simmons is we love him and have for a long time. I know he hasn't quite hit the heights that he has before at Montpellier, but there's just so much star quality that, yes,
yeah, they've got
Sam Davis. Sam Davis is great, but
yeah, you've got
like
that.
World Cup winners, European Cup winners. Lamasatelli's won European Cups with Sarries. It's a different step up. They've just got to find, like, I was leaning towards Grenoble actually, but I just think when you look at some of the names, it has to click.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with you there. And there have been some, like, they've not particularly consistently, but they have turned over some good sides at points, haven't they? It's not been, and some of those losses have been, they've had, don't get me wrong, some absolutely shambolic moments, but they've also, they've come close away from home a few times. So I don't think that element phases them too much, because they're just consistently a bit useless rather than just away from home.
Yeah, and also there's that kind of there's that flip side of the teams with the strong home support don't do quite as well away. They don't have their home. It's not a fortress really. The GGL, it's not always sold out or anything like that.
It doesn't sound like a fortress, does it? The GGL, like,
it's a stadium that is sometimes full and sometimes not very full. It's I think they probably are a team that can get themselves up for an away game because they don't need to rely on that home support.
Yeah.
Especially, like, so again, some of those names like Sam Simmons, Cobus Reinach and Jan Serfontaine probably don't care if they're home or away. They're not particularly emotional players. They're just good.
Yeah. And decent bank balances as well. Something to try and hold on to for next year. It's going to be class. Can't wait to see what happens. Who knows? Probably Montpellier, but it wouldn't be beyond what they've been doing this year to balls that one up at the last, like a final coup de grace. Shall we take a moment, come back, digest top 14 minus Montpellier, because they basically couldn't be bothered to turn up at Clermont, so we'll skip over that. Back in a sec. Okay, so top 14 main part of the top 14 is finally wrapped up ahead of a couple of fascinating barrage fixtures this weekend. We touched just briefly then on Clermont, Montpellier. Montpellier sent the GIFs, the whatever you want to call them, the bingies, and roundly got thumped in what was always going to be a bit of a dead rubber. So won't touch too much on that. The two kind of, two sets of games, I don't know if you saw any of them, I caught a little bit. They were a little bit inconsequential at the end. One was obviously Bordeaux Oyonnax, which amazingly, there were only 7 points in the second half. Bordeaux went up like 35-7, and then I don't know what happened. Everyone just kind of chilled out. Well,
did you see one of the tries?
I saw a couple of the tries, and they were unbelievable.
One of the tries was just like some of the rugby, the one that finishes with Penaud running in from like 40 metres. But it's tap and go from like 5 metre line. It's just some of the stuff they're capable of as a backline is just incredible, isn't it? It's been amazing all season.
They play some amazing rugby. That game as well, I can never pronounce the name, the Georgian tight head makes a break from the 10 metre line, goes under the posts. I've
not seen that.
Kalashvili. Yeah,
the bloke that was rubbish against
Harlequins. He got dusted. Made up for it with this try, and then oh god, I can't remember who scored it in the far corner, but the work from Tambwe before is genuinely outrageous. Like I don't know if you've seen it, but I think it's a better try than the Penaud one, just based on him finding space out of absolutely nowhere, flipping a mad inside ball. And yeah, it was just beautiful. The big news, that we shouldn't dwell on it too much. Have you seen the big news that came out of this game though?
No.
So Bordeaux will be, as will France, will be without Mathieu Jalibert for the rest of the season, who's got, I think, a calf injury sustained in like the 73rd minute against Oyonnax, which feels pretty seismic.
He wasn't meant to be starting.
No, I think it was a bit of a last minute shift, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was on the bench and Garcia was starting at 10, but then obviously Garcia ended up starting at fullback.
Yeah, so it's just, I don't know. I like Garcia a lot. I think he's quality. But yeah, when we'll talk about those in a minute, we'll don't want to dwell on that too much for poor Mathieu. He's had a bit of bad luck. At the other end of the ridiculous try spectrum, Bayonne Cast, so a couple of things noteworthy. Cast, another team to win at the Stade Jean Daget, so that is looking a little bit less of a fortress kind of week after week, albeit I'm sure Bayonne next season will want to do something about that. Some unbelievably grim weather in the second half.
Yeah.
Full kind of monsoon vibes. But
ironically similar to the other game they lost against Bordeaux, pissed it down like literally just before the start.
So yeah, fair weather usually down in Bayonne, and can they do it? Can they do it at home on a wet Saturday night? Apparently not. The two Cast tries in this, I don't know if you've seen either of them.
I've seen one of them.
The first one, our boy, one of our favourite players, King Camille Lopez. I think his attempted tackle on it's Nakarawa, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Is possibly goes straight into my top 5 rugby moments of all time. It is it is. Have you ever seen anything like that?
I have, Richard, in under 9s touch rugby. When you have to go two-handed touch on the waist and shout touch, albeit his was on two-handed touch on the shoulders.
It's not just the fact it's a touch, it's the fact that he fully leaves the ground to do it. You know, there's an argument that like if he gets it even more wrong, it's like a red card. So good. If you haven't seen it,
it's on the Canal Plus Instagram, I think, or Top 40. It must be on the Canal Plus one.
We'll stick it back up on X on Instagram, or like it's perfection. And also if you get the right angle, that was the kind of normal match day angle. I don't know who it is because it's so fleeting, but you see one of the Bayonne players when Nakarawa plants the ball down, turn and look towards the touchline where I assume Lopez is lying prostrate on the floor, as if just to say, like, mate, what is that? Yeah, it was amazing. And then genuinely possibly an even higher level of fast. Have you seen the last try? The Hernandez right in the corner.
No.
It's wet, it's slippery. It's the equivalent of like a kind of goal line scramble in football and the ball's ricocheting between loads of people. It's I think it might be the number 8 tries to grub her through, basically shins it, misses it. One of the Bayonne players tries to fly hack it clear, misses it completely. The ball lurks towards the touchline. Someone tries to do like a Cruyff turn to keep the ball in. And one of the Cas players just picks it up, pops it inside. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. We'll put it up as well because I had to go back and make sure it was in the same game because I couldn't believe that in one match you could have two tries of such perverse beauty. It was amazing. But yeah, so that game in the end, Cast finished level on points. So at one point would have been thinking, and we're very close to making a barrage spot, only to be pipped, and maybe we'll talk about some slightly more serious rugby by Racing, who lost at La Rochelle, but are in the barrage. You saw a fair bit of this?
So we were in the cricket club with not watching it, but following the live scores. And it was kind of, I think you came into the bar and I was like, Rich, your boys are going up as things stand. And then it was kind of working out, are they going to go up? What happens if there's a swing? What happens if there's a bonus point for Racing? Doesn't go down to points difference. It goes to head, and which we were kind of scrambling around trying to work out what was going on. Racing do get a try in the bang on 77 minutes. Tristan Tedder has the kick to convert to get within 5, which is to get the bonus point in the top 14, which I think I prefer as a bonus point thing. 7 feels a bit of a long way off, actually. Even though it's one score, but and it's not an easy kick. I'd say it's about 12 meters in from the touchline. It's on the better side for a right-footed kicker, but some serious balls to slot that, knowing that they needed the bonus point. And I'm sure they did, the way they were playing and the messages that were coming on. That drew them level with Cast and the head-to-head. So the big one actually for Cast was that game with about 15 yellow cards in it at Cast, kind of in March time, where I think Racing were down to 12 at one point.
Yeah, and then
Poplar misses a conversion and misses a kick. And then LeGarrette gets a penalty with a few minutes to go to give Racing I think it was 23-21 win away at Cast. And that head-to-head actually ultimately cost them, because I think Racing only won by 4 points at home. So say, had Cast won that game by 5 points, that would have been enough for them to have stayed up. So it's mad how kind of the fine margins, what seemed like the end of the season for Cast back in March because of a lost opportunity, ended up ruining their chances later down the line. It's kind of mental that way. Mental looking that close as well, kind of after 26 games. The Racing La Rochelle game generally, I mean, I've watched the last couple of Racing games that I've watched. They're very forgettable. Like, yeah,
I think it's a bit of a worrying, because at the start of the season you look at some of the players, and albeit like Tuasova was injured, and that's he was kind of like
he might as well have been injured in this game. He barely touched the ball.
Yeah, but they just seem to. I guess what you've always tend to have with Racing is, I don't know, maybe they're a little bit flaky, but at least in the kind of years that we've been watching them, maybe some of the star tens they've had have like papered over the cracks a little bit, but they've always had like a bit of an identity about how they play, and they're fast, they're a little bit loose, but just as you say, a bit forgettable, a bit pedestrian. They seem to kind of have slipped into that and lost some of that kind of game-breaking ability. And I feel like they're, like Cass will be kicking themselves, and maybe a few others. Like they feel
Poe.
Maybe it's Poe as well. Maybe it feels maybe it's a bit unfair, but like they feel quite a distant sixth to the top 5 teams, I would say, the way they've played this year.
Yeah, I think, I don't know what they're
probably
trying
win
to.
it
I
now.
don't. Yeah, well, and it'll be you got to remember, mate. They've got such an inspirational leader in their back row that can probably unite the city of Paris.
It would be quite rogue, wouldn't it? If
the top 14,
trophy,
the top 14 final is the day before this snap election. So once Sir Khaleesi has lifted the Bouclier de Brennus, I'm sure there'll be selfies galore with Macron, Le Pen, whoever kind of gets the nod in Parliament. I'm sure Khaleesi will be on hand to
mate. He'll be
get a photo.
One
shirt
better.
exchange.
He'll be
exchanging
he'll be Prime Minister.
An Eden Park white shirt from Emmanuel Macron with a South Africa match winners jersey from South Africa from the World Cup. But yeah, I don't know what they're trying to do in attack. I think Gilbert is just not very good. Like his kicking, his crossfield kicks, he's genuinely quite. I know we talked about it the other day, like the other week. You were like, "Oh, it was a brilliant try from a terrible kick." It's quite consistently bad for a compared to the likes of Lopez or trying to think of the other kick passers, the great kick passers in French rugby now. But my mind's gone blank. Joe Simmons, MBE, de Pagetta, yeah. The fact that they barely used Tursova and Hambosi. You've got 2 Fijian wingers, starting Fijian wingers. But at the same time, I also think, and I had this thought, I think, back when they played Toulouse in the Champions Cup, they don't have enough Tristan Tedders. Like, they don't have enough of, like, the kind of consistent nuts and bolts, non-GIF, perhaps, players. Like, they've got Tedder, they've got Will Rowlands. They don't have, like the geezer with the mullet, Staniforth. They don't have a Tom Staniforth. Yeah. They don't have a Jack Maddox. They don't have a Luke Whitelock. Like those sorts of players.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like a Duncan Paiawa. Like they've got Tuisova and Khaleesi and Yukani, but they don't have like these nuts and bolts, solid 7 or 8 out of 10 players every week.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of guys whose top level is kind of as good as it gets, but is unachievable most of the time. And I guess
where's there like Remy Baget or like a winger like that, or like not even a Villiers, like their wingers are Fijians or Christian Wade and Wan Imhoff. Like, there's not like there's not a nuts and bolts winger like a Marchant or I don't know, someone like that. I'm just listing names now, but which is another the other thing about this. Their squad makeup is baffling. Like how you can have all these superstar names and not have more than 2 scrum halves is just. And Labai, I've been a big fan of his. He was great at Poe, but he's looked pretty poor when he's filled in for Le Garrec. I think you're talking about, the likes of Finn Russell maybe papering over the cracks. I think Le Garrec has papered over a lot of cracks. His season's done.
He was in the crowd at Ernest Vallon. He's a Breton boy.
He started at Van. He started at Van.
Yeah. We'll see. Funny team. I guess the one that we're looking ahead a bit, but if ever you wanted a nuts and bolts player of the highest order, I would argue that Owen Farrell fits that bill in terms of, I'm not for one moment suggesting that he's only nuts and bolts, but in terms of absolutely like hammering basics, consistency, standards,
I'm fascinated to see how that goes, because there's a chance that he is just exactly what they need, but there's also a chance that it's just a complete culture clash.
Yeah.
But La Rochelle, Carvalho back. So we were talking, without looking ahead too much to Barrage, but he's just such a good player. He's such a step up from Iribarren or Bergeron. I don't think Iribarren he's actually way better at Racing than he has been at La Rochelle. Skelton is a very, very good player. It feels like he's come in for a lot of stick this season. I don't know why, but I kind of get that sense that people are a little bit at him.
I think he was basically the best player in about 4 different Heineken Cup finals, and therefore, if he falls slightly under that, and there aren't many more players that stand out more in a rugby pitch than Will Skelton. Like, it's pretty obvious what he's doing or not doing. He doesn't.
He's been great. Last few weeks, he's been great.
He doesn't fall into the unseen work category.
But he does a lot of nuts and bolts. But some of his carrying is just so good.
It's so destructive.
Hastoy, bit of a mixed bag. Some nice touches, some really bad touches. Noel
Another
looks
try
good
for Jack
again.
Noel, looks quick. It's quick.
From a lovely pass from High West. Lovely pass. La Rochelle, well, let's move on to the other game, I guess. I don't know if you want to touch on Perpignan first or in the meantime.
Perpignan, again, ended up as a bit of a dead rubber. Lovely moment. Sam Whitelock, last touch of a rugby ball in professional rugby, you would assume, unless Van getting to reverse his decision, like something like that. That would be cool. That was great. Poe out to a pretty big early lead and kind of kept.
Well, it looked like their dream of the 6th spot. The bonus point that they needed. Racing were struggling at that point. They went 17-3 down, I think, at half time to La Rochelle. So it looked like that point swing could have happened at various points, but Perpignan just kept scoring tries, which meant that the attacking bonus for Poe was always going to be out of reach as well. Our boys scoring tries, our loves, Gaetan, Atisogbe. But Poe, ultimately, both teams actually, at various points have been on the cusp of historic seasons, or certainly in recent years, and they've ended up 9th and 10th.
Yeah,
which is kind of a bit underwhelming after they could have potentially spun some real tails this year.
And miss out on that. They miss out on
the Champions Cup,
Champions Cup, and which I think financially is quite a big thing, albeit they're probably kind of drift over it. But for a lot of English rugby fans, like it's not to complain, but there's some pretty familiar trips in there. There's no Poe, no Perpignan, no Bayonne, but not get too greedy. And then the other game was Lyon-Toulouse, which Lyon made slightly heavy weather of. This really was pretty dead rubbery. Couple of nice tries. The only thing of real note in this was that it was the first ever sellout for a Lyon match at the Stade de Gerland.
Wow.
They sold it out. It's a big ground, isn't it?
It's like 32,000 or something.
It's decent size. I can only assume, the game we went to, the après match was pretty lively. I can only assume they'd lined up a fairly steady kind of end of season.
They get David Guetta for
David Guetta, Peggy Goo. It's cool stadium, really great place.
The kids, Toulouse kids threatened though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Like, they're just
Castro, another try.
They're just the standard of rugby across that squad is so high. We're talking about the likes of Capuozzo, who I know some people are a bit skeptical about, and I'd argue probably needs to be playing somewhere else, but that's a pretty good B team individual to have. So they're built. I mean, if we didn't already know that the depth at Toulouse is pretty strong, I think that confirmed it in what is a dead rubber. Although again, a bit like when they beat Montpellier, I think, and they rested some big matches coming up, few injuries, shot window, etc.
I think the interesting thing for that is that the names won't have played now, so they won't play next week. They won't play until the following weekend. They will have had 4 weeks off. Roman Ntamack, Chocobares, guys. There's a few more guys like that went. Marchand wouldn't have played 4 weeks. Miafu. A few of them were in the crowd at the Ernest Vallon in the Pro D2. They didn't even travel. So I saw Grau, Chocobares, and Rumat were all in the crowd at the Grenoble.
Nice. I saw
Van game.
Dupont was at Roland Garros, wasn't he? Looking pretty cool.
Yeah.
And one final thing from that, not to be outdone by Sam Whitelock, Sofiane Gattoun, who I assume has probably played his last game for Toulouse now, unless there's some injuries or they go rogue, scored a try with his last touch for a rugby ball as well.
Very nice.
Cool.
The other
Stade
game,
Francais, Toulon.
Yeah.
Stade Francais was another narrow win against a big club. Like, it's kind of their calling card.
They were the better team by miles in this, I thought. I was really impressed with them. This was probably the biggest game of the weekend in the end. It was either that one or the La Rochelle Racing game. It's certainly a better game of rugby than the La Rochelle Racing game. Toulon were pretty sloppy. Jaminet had an absolute stinker. They end up losing by 3 points, and he missed 2 incredibly gettable penalties for anyone, let alone him.
He's been in such good form as well recently.
Yeah, and he kicked at least 2 out on the full. There was there was one phase where I think about 3 different players kicked out on the full within 2 or 3 minutes.
Delightful.
But I was really impressed with Stade. I'm not a huge fan of Joris Segons, I have to say. I think he's a bit too steady. He scored a try the other week. His first ever try in the top 14. Even for a steady Eddie fly half, that is bad. But he kicked with intent. Like, he made mistakes, but he still kicked with intent and was putting energy into it when he was kicking it. And he controlled it really nicely. He was flawless off the tee this week. So we mentioned last week that Stade actually have the worst kicking percentage in the league, but he was flawless. We've not seen Zach Henry for a while. I wonder if he's quite badly injured. Toulon didn't quite go full noise, so there was no Olivon, no Villiers, no Ribbons. Ben White wasn't on the bench. Bigger wasn't on the bench. No, Garbisi was on the bench. With Hervé starting at 10, who was very good in the early part of the season. We've not seen Nasa Levu for ages.
Yeah.
Tufu, who was rested. He must be injured.
He must be.
He is injured. He keeps coming up, but I didn't see one of those little. They do that quite well in top 14. The little table of injuries.
The little cross, the little red cross. Yeah.
Like a football manager.
Yeah.
Stade's back row were brilliant. So I've been critical of the Toulon line out this season, and Singleton had a tough day, but I don't think it's him. Bobigny also, when he came on, his first line out was basically a pizza. Like, he might as well have just thrown a pile of dough and let it flop about a bit. I actually think I don't know whether it's just Toulon's line out is just not very good in terms of, I don't know enough about line out play, but this game, Singleton was getting pretty much hitting top of top, and Makalou is just there, just going, yep, cheers, thanks, we'll knock that off. They were reading it, so they went up and challenged loads with Makalou or Briat or Gabriag, and they were basically there every time, and they're such athletes that they were just stealing it every time, and their back row is just so nicely balanced. Briat is a real athlete, hard hitter. Makalou is just a phenomenal player. Habel Kufner is a big old lump. He motored over someone big for the try. I think it might be Payao. Was it? No, it was Kieran Brooks. He powered over a massive tight head prop from 5 meters out. I think he's off to Bayonne next year, Habel Kufner. quite a good signing, that. Kokot, good again.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Keeps going, doesn't it?
Dakawanga had Stade Francais coloured dreads in his hair. He had pink and blue dreads, which
That's
is flair.
rogue.
Their defence is amazing. Marchant and Ward.
Their defence is so good.
Ward looks like 5'10", and I've probably got this wrong, but he looks like he's 5'10" and about 85 kilos. But he smashes people. He doesn't look very big, but it's so physical.
How big is he? I think you might have done him a little bit of a disservice there.
I probably have. But he doesn't look big. I bet he goes all right as well. Nights out. I reckon he's
6'1".
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good. He's a specimen, isn't he?
Yeah.
Right. Let's look forward then. The barrage is here. It's upon us. First game, Toulon versus La Rochelle, Saturday night. This feels like the pick of the two to me. I could be wrong, but
yeah.
La Rochelle have flat to deceive for large parts of the season, but this feels like two teams who have started to find some genuine form towards the back end, albeit I'd say Toulon more so. And I don't know. I think they've maybe got a little bit more about them in terms of kind of incisiveness but I don't know. This feels really tight. This feels really tight, and it could simply be a home advantage deciding factor. I do think these two are. Yeah. What do you reckon?
Well, I'm just looking because I had a sneaking suspicion about this. Do you know how many away wins La Rochelle have got all year? If I just quickly...
They won at Po. They lost at Bayonne, but nearly turned them over. Drew at Toulouse. Was it like
the top 14?
Is it just one?
It's just the Po game, yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Toulon have looked really, really. I know you said they were second best in this game, but missing a lot of star players. I think. I mean,
Olivon, Villiers, Rowlands have probably been their three best players in this run, and they weren't playing. Those are three, and they didn't have the first choice fly half didn't start. So Garbisi came on relatively early, but they had some big names missing, and I think they'll go full noise. The Mile is a hell of a place. We've seen some phenomenal performances from them this season at home, and I think that La Rochelle record is just so bad away. Carvalho being back is a huge thing, but Hastor has been so patchy.
Toulon have got more than enough physicality there as well to kind of meet the big guys.
Big Brian will probably come into the second row.
Yeah. I still think he's still out, isn't he? I think it's been shown what a huge miss this season Bougaret's been for La Rochelle. I mean, he looked class at kind of. He always looked great in a La Rochelle shirt, but I think maybe hadn't quite realised just how kind of talismanic and central his performances have been. So I think Toulon maybe shade that.
I think they could win by 8 to 10 points.
Yeah,
I think they've got enough. I saw some stuff on the clipboard this week, and I think that could be the clipboard wasn't blank. So there's some ideas up PM in there.
The master plan is coming to the fore. And then Bordeaux Racing, I think
one-way traffic.
I think that could be, notwithstanding Jalabert's absence, but I think with Garcia, even if they nudge Luku to 10, I think they're just a much more complete side in every facet. I think Bordeaux. I think it's as simple as that.
Didn't they absolutely humble them at Stade Champbard recently with a second team?
Possibly. Like, they've done it to a few people, haven't they? I just think I think they're better organised. I don't think Racing have got the Bordeaux have creaked a little bit at scrum time, haven't they? I don't think Racing have got or have shown much this year to suggest they're going to trouble them significantly there. I think the back line, we've said a million times, is ridiculous. Talking of hookers as well, I love Lamoth at Bordeaux. He's class. Depth at hooker is unbelievable. I think I'm with you. I think that could be. I think that could be incredibly straightforward.
It was 21-5 on, can't see the date, the 2nd of March, but it was that game where Deportes scored 2 brilliant tries.
It sort of it was.
But it was and the try was they were very but that 5 for Racing came in the last minute. They were just completely outplayed.
It was a Sunday night game, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, I remember watching it. Should have been more. And
I think no Le Garec is so big for them.
Yeah.
As much as
at least this year it's been their best player. Yeah. Okay, well, looking forward to a Racing rout after that Khaleesi hat-trick. And we'll have to eat our words. Top 14 Barrage is on us. That's really exciting. Pro Day, the Access match is on us. Any Petit fours, to be honest? For me, it's mainly just been enjoying people doing weird stuff with trophies.
I just before we touch on we had a very helpful tweet from James Harrington. I did actually message him today, who is a journalist working in France. He's very good. He's worth a follow on X. So this is about the French tour. So they will name
of course,
a squad of 23 after this weekend's games, and the rest after the semis for a squad of 42. So none of the top 14 finalists, because it's such a short tour and the turnaround's too tight, none of the top 14 finalists will play at all. So that is almost certainly going to be Toulouse, which is a decent chunk of players. Yeah, you've got 2 hookers there that won't be available.
Yeah.
For start, just as a basic starting point. A shame for the likes of Paul Cost, Matis Castro Ferreira, Paul Grau, possibly. Shame for those guys not to get a shot at a debut. If it's Bordeaux or who else could it be? I guess it could be Stade Francais. I guess there's slightly fewer of that, but. I think we kind of said that we'll know a little bit more after this weekend in terms of who's going to play. But Atis Ogbe, we do expect to be there. He's already named, Gazzy has already named checked Nucci, who should be available after the Access match this weekend, and Atis Ogbe. Tatafu, we think, is going to become French. A little bit lacking at tight head prop maybe in France. I say that, not in weight. They've got 2 enormous units. Gaeton, we reckon, will be there. I would expect Antoine Frisch, depending on how Munster get on in the URC, to be involved. Buros, depending on how Bordeaux, if his injury comes back. Jordan Joseph's found a bit of form again. Baptiste Junot, I think, will probably come in with no Dupont.
You'd think so. And the Garrick, I imagine they'll
won't be available. He's done,
isn't he? So
no Grau either. So it's like what you're looking at there, Luku, Junot. I wonder if they will go Carbonneau. Or they just chuck Carbonneau in the under-20s and hope they win another under-20 World Championship because he's captain, isn't he? So Castro Ferreira will go to that, I'd imagine. I wonder if Atis Ogbe might go to that. I don't know. But Gaeton and BL Barret didn't go to the under-20s last year, but obviously that was the World Cup. But I don't have too many other Petit fours generally. I saw some footage of a bus breaking down outside the ground, and the whole squad drove said bus into between the gates. I can't remember where it was, but it was brilliant.
Yeah, I'd say mine were very much like that. It's just, we spoke about the Montpellier Madness last week, so don't need to go there again. I think we're starting to see a few more like confirmed signings for next year, so maybe we'll have a bit of a run through of some of the swaps in a couple of weeks.
V, our boys eyeing up some big names.
Yes.
Johnny May and Toulouse Bayano, apparently.
Wow.
Imagine the running rugby there. Ben
Botica
pulling the strings.
If ever there's an excuse to go back to Angoulême, it's to see Bayano. What a player. Where's he been? Is he?
I think he's at Sale. No, Stad.
Is he? I know he was there last.
No, he's gone to Bristol.
Okay.
Don't quote me on any of those. I've named
he was at Stad. He was definitely at Stad for a period of time. Nice. Yeah.
Sale Sharks.
Where's he been? I haven't seen him anywhere. What a waste. Get him to Angoulême. 100%. Yeah. So I think we could probably call it a wrap there.
Are there any other rumours that you've seen that you like the look of? There's absolutely loads flying around. There's quite a lot this weekend. There's a lot of stuff on. I mean, far too many to mention, but every club is kind of doing the presentation of a jersey signed with their kind of departing players, obviously like Sam Whitelock. But every club has about 7 or 8, from what I can tell. It's quite big names. Poe losing quite a few big names. Rabah Slimani apparently going to Leinster.
Yeah,
that's rogue, isn't it?
I'm not sure about that. Doesn't convince me. And of course, speaking of new signings, first day of your new job tomorrow. So good luck.
Thank you.
Don't do anything ridiculous or HR worthy on your first day.
Hopefully my first day will be better than your day today.
Yeah, that would be good. Right, we'll leave it there. You can follow us, TikTok, Instagram, X. Anything else I've missed?
Rosby's Rugby. Give us a rating, Rugby. 5 stars. Give us 5 stars, please. Subscribe. Tell your friends.
Subscribe, tell your friends. Beautiful. Right, the barrage is upon us. Can't wait to review it next week. But for now, we'll say au revoir.
Au revoir.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.